Your father was a very well-known peace activist who would drive sick Palestinian children to hospitals in Israel. He spent his life in the peace movement. This is what he wanted, was to have two nations living peacefully side by side. And he believed you would make peace with your enemies. This has been what his life's been about. And yet there he is now in Gaza being held by terrorists, and you've no idea what may happen to him.
Yeah, I think my father's story complicates the situation for people who would like to just cheer for one team. And I think that in this part of the world, there are many people that realize that our capacity to live peacefully is only if we find a way to live peacefully alongside our neighbors.
Sharone, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. I said it at the start, I'll say it again now. It must be agony for you. And I hope your father is released very soon, that your family can be reunited. But as you say, it's so much more than just them. You know, they lived in a kibbutz with 400 people, 80 at least were killed in the most barbaric manner. These are people they've known sometimes for decades, close friends. And the horror of that, well, I'm sure will live with all of them, the ones who survived for a very long time.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing how when your life is kind of torn apart so much, you realize the kind of fabric and what it is made of, and how the love that we share, the way you overcome petty fights you used to have over little things. And in a way, in all this darkness, it's these people, some of them, you know, I lived in London for 30 years. I went really far, and I see people I haven't seen for 20 years, and there's a bond, and you know, destiny has brought us back together. And I think that that's something that really carries us through it, the feeling that we are part of this extended community, even if we're very far away. And I think also, you know, people have shown great generosity and kindness towards us. And in a way, that also makes me feel that, you know, that we will have to find a way forward to this, that the legacy of these events, and we are learning every day new things. We are learning about rape, and we are learning about beheading, and we are learning there's thousands of stories, and the ordinary stories are just things that would have, you know, been covered in the news for weeks for one of them, and there's thousands and thousands of these stories. The scale of it is overwhelming. There were 240 hostages. We are now down to 166. Many of them are, you know, connected to other hostages, to people that were murdered. My heart is with all of them, with the fathers who are there. So there's children who came back to find that their parents were murdered. There's children who came back knowing that their father is still there and they don't know when they will see him. There's such a huge level of trauma. There's such a complicated situation that unfolds here. Sometimes it makes you feel really so desperate, and yet, you know, I know, because I'm a parent myself, that we have to come out of it and let it be the catalyst for more than just more war.
Sharone, this is a difficult question, but I'm curious what you feel about this. As obviously Israel's response has been militarily overwhelming in Gaza, a lot of destruction, many homes wiped away, tens of thousands now of Palestinians have been killed, including thousands of children, obviously had nothing to do with any of this. What do you feel about the Israeli response?
As a human being, I find the loss of life, and I spend quite a lot of my time reading about it and trying to educate myself about it. I find this loss of life horrific. I also find that there was a very frail coexistence that was shattered on the 7th of October. And it's very hard to understand, to me at this moment, what is a good response and what isn't. I think that we are dealing with a horrific terrorist organization that is worse than ISIS, it's worse than Hamas, than Boko Haram. And so it's very easy to just say, don't do anything. But I don't know, then what do you suggest? One thing I know for sure is that it cannot possibly be that the people who have, come to us and raped and slaughtered and murdered us and trained for it and premeditated every element of it. I cannot believe that these people come back home and are kind to their own people. So I think that the Palestinian people deserve better than Hamas too. And I think that that is something I'm sure about it. I'm not a military strategist, and I'm running on the pitch like hell, trying to save my loved ones. So it's not the best moment for me to kind of think about what is the best strategy for it. I lament tremendously the loss of life. I believe still that we will have to make peace with our enemy one way or another. I believe that my people have endured such a horrific trauma that we cannot contain it. We cannot contain it. We cannot contain the mass rapes. We cannot contain the killing of babies, the tearing out of babies out of their mothers. We cannot contain it. So at this point, it's really hard for me to tell you what will be a good strategy.
Yes.
I don't know. I know what I want. I want nobody to suffer from this ever.
Yes, I completely agree with you. And you say it so eloquently and so powerfully. Just finally, Sharone, how are you doing? This must have been the worst time of your life, of course, but how are you coping? Are you sleeping? Are you getting enough support?
I feel very surrounded by love. I spend a lot of time with my mom. My mom, life has changed so much. We're just trying to relocate her and find our feet in my parents' house was the center of our world. All of us are all of a sudden on the world stage playing, to the audience. I don't know how to say it. And it's just been really, really exhausting. And it feels that we need so much strength. We also know that we have found our voice and strength in the last 53 days in a way we could never foresee. And I think that we are carried by sheer fact that we have to do it, as well as by the fact that something should come out of it. We owe it to the people that are there. And I think the fight is working. This deal is the most important thing. We need to now continue it very, 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 very carefully, make sure that it's not going to be stopped in the next 2 days, but that it continues to the full maximum. And then we have to press on all governments, on the Qatari, on the Egyptian, on NGOs that have failed us miserably on the 7th and since. On all these people, we have to press on them to continue to bring these people back home, and then we can start really thinking what has happened, what could be done differently, whether Israel later. Now it's just about returning these people home. They're in horrific condition. Their life might end very quickly for all sorts of various reasons. I call on everybody who can do anything to bring them back home, to end that stage, and then we can look for how to move on.
Sharone, thank you so much for joining me. I wish you and your family all the best. I hope and pray your father is home with you soon. But I thank you for joining me. And I wish you and all the families of all these hostages who are living this unrelenting nightmare, I hope it is over soon for all of you. Thank you very much.